Welcome to Day by Day Hacks. We're talking about tips and tricks to have a consistent prayer time, Bible reading time with the Lord day by day. We are in the Life Word Podcast studios. I'm joined with my good friend Dan Clark. He's been helping us out over the last couple of weeks with our Day by Day Hacks. You are the first guest on our Hacks segment of the show, and so I'm very thankful to you and Miss Donna for coming up here to be able to do this with us. And today, Dan, what I want to talk about or to hear from you is about your prayer time. You know, last week we talked about the importance of having a plan when it comes to reading, and that some people, they just flip open the Bible and that's what they think that's what I'm supposed to read, and that's their plan. And we talked about the importance of having a little bit more structure to that. And the same thing when it comes to prayer time as well. Sometimes when we don't have a plan, it can just be Lord bless everyone type of deal, and there's really no heart in it or anything like that. And so I know that's not the case with you. And so talk to us just for a minute about how you go about thinking about and your plan for praying.
Okay, first of all, in my prayer journal, I have a prayer list, and I have things I pray about daily.
Mm-hmm.
I have some that I pray about just on a weekly basis.
Okay.
But that changes throughout. You know, sometimes these are short-term things that maybe someone that's sick or that sort of thing, and God answers those prayers. But I think it's important too to acknowledge how He, answers those prayers over time, so I can refer back to it and see. Because sometimes we forget how good God is.
Yeah.
And so there's actually 2 times during my quiet time that I pray.
Okay.
The first time is before I read. I ask God's word for Him to give me discernment of His word.
Yeah.
What's better than that? I mean, because
Right.
He wants us to understand.
Yeah.
So that's not a long prayer. It's just asking Him for His help.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, once I've done my reading, once I've done my journaling, I go through my prayer list.
Yeah.
And I try to not make it mundane or the same thing all the time.
Right. Yeah.
I want him to feel like that I'm talking to him like my father.
Yeah.
Not that it's I don't know a good way to explain that, but not that it's a situation where it's not maybe I could say informal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want him to feel like that I'm truly talking to him, not this on maybe a
So you're not using these and thous whenever you're praying
Right,
in your prayer
exactly.
time. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's great. So you mentioned something that I think's pretty interesting, and it's almost like we have to give people permission to do this, right? That you have things that you pray for daily, and then you have things that you pray for weekly. And it's a consistent thing, but you're not trying to pray for everything
at one time.
every time
Right.
that you pray. And I think that gives some people some breathing room to kind of, I don't have to pray, because then our prayer time would be everlasting, it seems like. And so I think that's a good tip is you can divide it out into daily things, weekly things, even monthly things, whatever the case may need to be. So let me ask you this, Dan, about how long does that second prayer time last?
It can vary because
Yeah.
I don't. It's not really so structured that if I feel different that day,
Yeah.
if I feel like I just want to talk truly to Him,
Yeah.
I don't. I may not have. I not pray about everything on my
Right.
prayer list.
Yeah.
It may be just something that I want to talk to Him about.
Yeah.
And but I'd say at an average, it's probably 10 minutes,
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah. And so your overall time with the Lord, from the time you sit down in that particular place,
Right.
how long does that usually last?
It usually takes me by the time, because it takes a little while for me to wake up. So I'm drinking coffee in the morning a
Yeah.
little bit before I even start.
Yeah.
And then once I do that, then I get right into the Word. But roughly an hour.
An hour? So when you first started doing that, did it take you an hour, or did you rush right through it? Or, I mean,
It was shorter.
Yeah.
And I think it should be all up to that particular person
Yeah.
that's doing it. You know what your schedule is, what you have time for. And so maybe you start out with, maybe it's just 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, but I think you'll see over time it'll become 30 minutes and it'll come longer because your relationship with God is, you're learning more, learning more about who He is
Yeah.
and what He is to you.
Yeah. That's
and
great.
You want to spend more time with Him.
That's great.
Yeah.
So the day-by-day tips and hacks from Dan Clark is, it's good for you to have a particular place, a set-aside place, a set-aside designated time, a strategy for reading the Bible, and a strategy for praying. And I think all of those things help us not just get lost in the weeds of this thing and to keep us moving in a direction. And so thank you so much for joining us on Day by Day Hacks. We've enjoyed it. Until next time on Day by Day Hacks, we'll see you later.